the Markets Director at the IIRC, responsible for overseeing IR networks all the way from London. Please welcome Sarah Gray.
Thank you very much, everyone. And in fact, I think my first job here this morning is to say thank you to all of you for what you do in your organisations to embed and implement integrated thinking and integrated reporting, because really that's why we're all here. And I'm really delighted and honoured to be here today to celebrate your really impressive achievements in leading the way and setting the example to organisations around the world, because this is really the birthplace of integrated thinking and integrated reporting. And thanks so much to Cindy, Mitesh, Tuto and all the Nkonki team for inviting me to be part of this really special occasion. And especially their great initiative in doing this insightful research into companies reporting, because it's really by identifying those organisations, and you're here in the room amongst us, that demonstrate the leading practices. And doing this is really inspiring others to follow the good examples. As we all know, the impact of Nkonki's initiative and your actions as leading reporters does not stop at just better information for providers of financial capital and others. The ripple effect radiates across the entire capital market system, including across your own organisations, and it's supporting and enabling some really essential system changes that will foster more sustainable development and better financial stability internationally. We meet in this impressive stock exchange building as the mood of change in the way we do business is really stirring across the world. And I'm using my notes because I think there are some important quotes to pick up on. An article in the Financial Times that I was reading recently was headlined, "Vote of No Confidence in Shareholder Capitalism," with the subheading, "Big investors are leading towards long-termist and a more inclusive outlook." And I think that's a real theme that we're hearing. The impetus for building this longer-term view in the entire capital market system is really gathering remarkable momentum around the world. Mark Carney, who's the Governor of the Bank of England and the Chairman of the Financial Stability Board for the G20, called it the tragedy of the horizons. And he talked about that at an Integrated Reporting Award with the World Bank. The tragedy of horizons. He also picked up on this theme. It's been a sort of ongoing theme over the last year at a recent speech at Lloyd's of London. The tragedy, Carney explained, is our seeming lack of ability to account today for the risks that we know are coming down the tracks towards us. Whether we think of in terms of political horizons, the horizons of regulators, or indeed corporate disclosures, they are out of sync both with the reality of the risks faced by our economy today and the liability horizons of institutional investors, which, as we know, often run to several decades. As Hillary Clinton, the frontrunner to be the next president in the US, has said, she talks about the tyranny of quarterly capitalism is distorting decision-making, preventing long-term investment, and the widest possible sharing of prosperity. She's made specific proposals to reform incentives and the regulatory oversight to encourage that longer-term decision-making and better stewardship. What's so astonishing about Clinton's intervention is that the measures she's proposing have not really met with resistance in Wall Street. Business and the investor community seem to be sort of rather quietly supporting those initiatives, and indeed we're aware that there are people that are ahead of the game in this system, and one of them is Larry Fink, the chief executive of BlackRock, the largest asset manager with over 4.5 trillion under management, and he wrote an open letter to CEOs of America's largest companies this year, and in it he said, "More and more corporate leaders have responded with actions that can deliver immediate returns to shareholders, such as buybacks and dividend increases, while under-investing in innovation, skilled workforces, or essential capital market expenditures necessary to sustain longer-term growth." He added, "We believe that government leaders around the world, with a concerted push from investors and companies, must act to address public policy that fosters long-term behaviour." I think you can see a theme developing here. These are just a few of the many indications that we're seeing about the three shifts that the IIRC is calling for, and they're really starting to happen globally. The first shift, the shift in the economic system from financial capitalism to a more inclusive capitalism. Second, the shift in the capital market system itself, from short-term to more sustainable capitalism with a longer-term perspective and longer-term horizons. And finally, the shift that we're talking about today, the shift in the corporate reporting system from silo to integrated reporting. And that really, I think, underpins the shifts in the other two. They really do have a connection. As an example, in Japan 2 years ago, the government commissioned ITO review examined factors that contributed to short-sighted behaviour in the Japanese market and concluded that corporate reporting reform should sit alongside governance reform to strengthen the engagement between company boards and investors. And this was seen as an essential prerequisite for growth. Today, there are over 180 companies doing integrated reporting in Japan, or reporting that they're calling integrated, they're on the journey. And that's according to the Investor Relations Association in Japan. And I'm hearing reports that actually in the next reporting cycle, they're expecting around 400 companies to be doing integrated reporting. So, other markets are hot on your heels here in South Africa. Another interesting example, integrated reporting has actually been included in the B20 recommendations to the G20 as a tool to support longer-term investment in infrastructure and to help small and medium-sized enterprises gain access to capital for growth. And to have achieved such recognition by a global forum of business leaders is, I think, testament to the relevance of corporate reporting in contributing solutions to some of the most profound business and capital markets problems that we have today. So continuing that theme of global momentum, over 1,000 businesses that we know of are now implementing integrated reporting around the world. South Africa started off and you were alone, but really others are now following you. And a recent survey of over 500 leaders internationally by CIMA, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, and Black Sun, shows the direction of travel. I was really interested to see that nearly 50% of chief executives, CFOs, and chief operating officers said that they are already moving to IR, and a further 35% saying that they intend to adopt IR within the next 2 to 3 years. So that's 85% in total declaring their intention to move to IR, which is really significant momentum. And we're actually seeing that in IR networks around the world, with over 800 people participating in those networks to learn how to implement integrated thinking and reporting. And I know with this audience, I'm preaching to the converted when it comes to the business case for IR at the company level. But it is worth reminding ourselves of the positive impacts of implementation of IR and how it can, and I think it will support our continued progress so that we don't rest on our laurels, and perhaps encourage those in our organisations who don't yet get it to take this forward and understand it. And the first statistic that I wanted to mention was 79% of non-executive directors surveyed here in South Africa by SAICA believe that integrated thinking has increased the quality of their organisation's dialogue with providers of financial capital and other stakeholders. In a survey that the IRC did with Black Sun of 60 companies worldwide, we found that 92% of respondents who were in the process of implementing IR said that it had increased the understanding of how they created value. And that wasn't just within their own organisation, it was board level, it was with employees, and of course it was also externally with their investors and other stakeholders. In the investor community, 80% of investors in another global survey said that their perception of management quality is absolutely affected by the quality of a company's reporting. And I was hearing some of the same messages coming through in the round table that Nkonki organised and hosted on Monday night this week. That survey also found that nearly 2/3 of investment professionals said that the quality of a company's reporting could have a direct financial impact on its cost of capital. And certainly there's academic research that's quite extensive that's starting to show a similar theme. 87% of the IRC's pilot programme participants that publish an integrated report believe that investors better understand their strategy as a result of integrated reporting. I could go on, but I won't. At the macro level, we are seeing a shift in the discourse of major economies around the world and mainstream leaders within those economies towards practical action that delivers more inclusive capital markets with longer horizons and better connections between companies, investors, and the societies we operate in. In other words, the conditions are being created for mainstream adoption of integrated reporting globally. You guys are in the vanguard. By using the IR framework as a tool to help make change happen within your own businesses, you're not only benefiting your own organisations, I think you're inspiring others and precipitating important and necessary wider change. Thank you.